bookworms. Welcome to The Best Book Ever, the podcast where we talk about your favorite books. I'm your host, Julie Strauss, and today I'm thrilled to be talking to Ashely Shannon. Ashely is the founder of GYST Media, a content creation company that aims to create female-driven podcasts, books, blogs, videos, and more. I have followed Ashely online for several years, but this was the first time we've really had a chance to sit and talk. I was absolutely thrilled to discover that she is the same in person as she is online. Real, honest, funny, and very cool. Ashely chose a book that's really close to both of our hearts, and I know you're going to love hearing her tell me why Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson is the best book ever. For more information on how to support this podcast, check out my Patreon. For about the cost of a latte, you can have access to all sorts of extra goodies. Every week, you'll get exclusive interview clips with my guests that are only available to patrons. I also send out advance notice of the books we discuss, curated reading lists, my monthly reading wrap-ups, including the good, the bad, and the DNFs, and essays about the reading life. Go to patreon.com, that's patreon.com/bestbookever to learn more about how you can help me keep the candles burning over here in my reading cave. Now, back to the show. Hi, Ashely. Welcome to the Best Book Ever podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Ashely, you are currently working on a book which has the most delightful title I've ever heard in my life.
So you're probably talking about my memoir, which is called Girl, Get Your Shit Together.
Tell me about it.
It's actually just a collection of essays about times I found myself at rock bottom and had to, grow up and glow up and figure my shit out.
And what's the goal of it? What's your overlying purpose with this?
That was a deep question. Okay, well, when I started writing on Medium, I was really lost and kind of at a really low point in my life. I was on like welfare and I just had my second kid. And I needed to write things out to kind of figure things out for myself. But then I started to realize as people were reading my blog posts and essays that a lot of people related. And they, I had my first comment was something like, I'm so glad that you wrote this. I'm glad I'm not the only crazy one. Or, now I know I'm not alone. And so that was kind of the whole purpose. Like I was just writing about myself to just kind of get it out. The tagline for Girl, Get Your Shit Together is picking up the pieces when life falls apart. And it's just to show women that are struggling that they're not alone. I feel like women more than men suffer in silence.
It feels right from the title, way more honest than the wellness movement. A lot of the wellness movement is normally doing. Is that intentional on your part?
Yeah, I think that whole good vibes only thing is actually really toxic. I have read Rachel Hollis's books, not her latest one about her divorce, which was perfectly timed. But I did read, the Stop Apologizing and the Girl Wash Your Face. And it, to me, I know a lot of people resonate with her. That's not me. Like, I used to be an addict. I've been arrested. I once got really mad at a guy and threw a brick through a window. Like my life is messy and raw. And I just feel like people resonate with that more because it is honest. And it shows that, I've been at rock bottom and I started down there and now I'm here and you can do it too. I think a lot of people don't see, from the very bottom to rising up. They see, privileged people who got a head start and then they rise up.
I'm always automatically attracted to those stories of people who I know are going to tell the raw truth.
Yeah. I mean, the most detrimental thing I've ever heard about depression, which I'm not like clinically diagnosed with depression, but I have adult onset ADHD, which one of the symptoms of that is anxiety and depression. And so one of the most detrimental things, and God love my mother, but is, can't you just get up and start doing stuff? Like once you start to do stuff, you'll feel better. But she doesn't understand the mountain of mental things I have to climb to be able to do the stuff,
Yeah.
And I do want to say that, like, if I didn't have kids, my mental state would probably be worse, because there is, like, I'm a single mom, so I don't have a partner to rely on. So I do have to get up and bathe children and feed them and do those things. Not to bring it back to her again, but that's kind of the issue with, like, the Rachel Hollis thing. Like, girls got nannies, and there's no way that she could do the kinds of things that she does in the lifestyle like that I have. And so comparing myself to that Instagram mom who has a husband or has paid help or even has a maid, like, I mean, I had to sweep Cheerios out from behind me so you didn't see them. Like, you just can't kind of compare that. So I tend to not have a veil on any of that. It's just very raw and very open. And this is who I am. And if you don't like it, that's cool.
So I really want to ask you about your reading life. How do you have two very young children? How do you make time in your life for leisure reading? Like, what are your tricks and tips to get books into your life? Because that is a hard thing, and it's, for most people, not considered a necessity. Like, how do we make time for that?
Yeah, so I've always been an avid reader. And after I had my son, so my son is 7. His name is Graham. And then Emmy is my daughter. She's 2. So after I had Graham, I took a job as a custodian. And I was on this thing. It was like my 3rd year in a row of wanting to read 100 books in a year. But I went from being a stay-at-home mom to working full-time. And then I realized, well, I can clean a school while I'm listening to a book. And that just stuck. I'd go through in an 8-hour shift. I mean, most audiobooks are between 6 and 8 hours. Some are a little bit longer, but I'd do a book a shift, and that just kind of stuck. And so I listen to books when I'm, folding laundry or washing dishes, those kinds of things.
Do you still hit 100 books a year?
Oh, no. Not even close. I had to give that up a couple of years ago, probably after my daughter was born. Just because then I started running a business, and my ADHD got worse to where I can't work and listen to books. I have to be doing, like, mindless activities to pay attention to it.
So tell me what do you gravitate towards in your reading life? What kind of books do you like to read?
I tend to do a lot of self-help because I'm always trying to fix myself. I'm not sure it's possible at this point. But not so much anymore. I used to read a lot of self-help. I read a lot of young adult books because that's where my passion is. If I could write any genre for the rest of my life and I'd actually pay my bills, like, I would pick young adult. And I think that's just because I didn't like to read until, like, the 4th grade, and I found Harry Potter. And then I was just, like, never without a book. But then I went through a phase where I was like, I want to read, like, the biggest books. Like, I wanted to be an impressive reader. So I read, like, Roots and Gone with the Wind when I was in, like, 7th grade.
Are you serious? Yeah. Did you like them?
Gone with the Wind is my favorite book, which is odd because I claim to not like romance. I just don't think I read a lot of romance, but I did. Roots was interesting, and my mom made me watch, like, the television series after I was done. We got it on DVD, and it definitely changed my outlook. I grew up in Iowa. I live in Iowa now. I lived in a small town. There was not a single non-white person at my school or in my town. So you reading that really kind of opened my eyes up at a younger age. So I'm kind of grateful for that.
And do you find it in YA? Do you find that there's a real diversity in the books that you're reading?
I do now. Not when I started reading. I read a lot of LGBTQIA books. Like David Levithan and Nina Core, I think is her name. Just because I'm queer and I like representation. But it's definitely opening up now. There's a lot more coming out that makes it available. I mean, before it was just like orphan kid whose parents died or are on vacation gets into trouble. And that was like a whole, that was the whole genre for the most part. Maybe there was magic. So, but now it's a whole rainbow of races and representation, different mental health issues and sexualities. And so it's nice to see for sure.
And you're raising a neurodivergent family. Are you finding that kind of representation in literature or in children's books specifically?
Not yet. And I think it's because there's a lot of fear around writing those kinds of characters and getting it wrong. But I think that it will come, but it's going to take more time.
How did you find this book that we're talking about today, Furiously Happy?
Oh, I found it when I was working as a custodian, and I first found her first book, which I think is called Let's Pretend This Never Happened. And I had just been like officially diagnosed. I had known for a while, but I had just been like officially diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. I was looking for books about mental health, but not like fix me books. I was looking for like You're Not Alone type of books, the stuff I write now, basically. And it just came up on Audible and I bought it and I listened to it. And I remember thinking, because she's into like weird taxidermy things.
Yes.
And there's like a taxidermy raccoon on the cover. And I was dating a taxidermist at the time. So I remember being like, that's kismet.
Yeah, yeah.
This is fate.
I have never met a taxidermist. How are you all meeting these taxidermy folks? I don't think this is a California thing.
I live in a small town in Iowa, rural, the kind of place where people come here to hunt deer and stuff like that.
So how do you describe this book to other people when you're telling people to read it? How would you describe it?
It's going to make you laugh about all the things that are wrong with you. So Jenny Lawson has a writing style that's kind of like my own. She writes in like personal essay styles. So like each chapter is, for instance, of something that happens to her. And it's kind of like blogging in the way that where, there's a little takeaway at the end. Usually in her books, it's kind of like, you're not alone, or, you're broken, but you're not trash, or, something along those lines. For those of us that struggle with mental health issues, which I think there's more people than they realize that struggle with these issues. And there's definitely a lot more, coming forward that it's not as stigmatized. So it just kind of helps people see, oh, I'm not alone. This is, I do these things too. And I gave it to the person I was dating when I found it, because it was kind of like see, I'm not the only one, and I think it really does help people who have loved ones with mental health issues kind of understand things a little bit more, because sometimes we can't always explain what is going on in our fucking heads, but she does a pretty good job of it sometimes.
I first came across her, I don't even know how many years ago, but she posted on her blog about the chicken that she named Beyonce. Honest to God, probably 15 people emailed that to me and went, "This is you," because it's precisely how I operate with my husband. And so I had the same I sent that to him and he was like, "Wow, there are two of you out there." Yep. Guess what? There are a lot of us.
There are a lot of us. And it's funny because she takes these stories and like, that's really funny, but I can read that and see like, oh, I do that, but in different ways. And maybe now that I'm more self-aware, I can, not burn every bridge in my life just because I'm unhappy about one little thing. And so it's very relatable shit, right? Like, it's all about, it's somebody on the surface will read this and be like, it's very, very funny. And and there's some serious stuff in there too, but it's very, very funny. But for me, it's like, it's a book filled with like light bulb moments, and then it's like, okay, so then maybe there's therapy or, medication adjustments, or just knowing that I do this or I have done this in the past. Let's not repeat that behavior. So it is. It's just, it's like ping. Like, I was re-listening to it while I was doing my makeup today. And she talks about depression's like a demon that rides on your back, and you take it with you everywhere. And sometimes it parties, and sometimes it's fun. And sometimes, it wraps its arms around you and holds you in bed. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay. So I've been feeling a little not productive lately. That's that thing I'm carrying around. And so it's every time I listen to it, it's like a new moment of like, that's why I do what I do. Okay. Now time to adjust.
I'm always so impressed by people like Jenny Lawson and you, who can be unfiltered and will just tell the truth without fear. It seems to me that it is without fear. Is it without fear? Because from the outside, that's what it looks like.
No, that's always nice. It's nice to hear. There are people who look at what I do as a job and are like, you have your shit together. No, that's cute though. But no, I'm scared constantly. I have insane anxiety about what I do, which would make most people be like, okay, then don't do it. Just go be a waitress or something, go back to college, whatever. But I kind of feel like I have to do this. This is just kind of what I was made to do. And so it's kind of weighing out like, I need to write this story versus like, people are going to judge me. I'm going to get trolled. I get trolled a lot. And just overcoming that fear, which is not easy at all. The first blog post I wrote about like my mental health issues was called Borderline Personality Disorder is Ruining My Life. And I just was very much like, it's ruined every relationship I've ever had. I'm pushing away the people that I love, even though I really just want them to love me and want them to stay. And when I hit publish, I immediately went and took it down because I was like, people that know me are going to read this. Like, my mom's going to read this. Like, it's embarrassing, but then I don't know. It's really not, because everybody's suffering from something. Nobody's perfect. And so I might as well tell my story and let other people know that they're not alone, because I felt alone for a very long time.
Is there anything that is off limits to you? Like, is there anything you absolutely would not write about?
The answer is no, but there are stipulations. So, I write about sex. I do it under a pen name because I live in a very conservative small town. When I started, I used to live in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, which is kind of like Austin, Texas, but smaller, very weird hippie town. Okay. And there it was just like, let your freak flag fly. But now I'm back in Iowa, very conservative small town. And I don't want the mom at the school pickup to read, my blog article about 5 best ways to orgasm or whatever, So I write that stuff under a pen name, but no, I write about everything. There is no limits. And I'm just open like that, I guess. I never used to be.
What changed?
I was really tired of being an insecure person. I was really tired of worrying about what other people thought about me. And just really kind of tired of feeling like I was living my life fitting into somebody else's box. like, I tried really hard to be one of those Rachel Hollis soccer moms with the blonde hair and the always being on time and the baking and all of that stuff. And then I just realized that like I was so unhappy when I was pregnant with my daughter. I was so unhappy and so alone trying to like fit into this, I don't know, stereotypical whatever that just was not me. And I actually, and this is like a common thing in my life, when I'm very, very unhappy, I tend to like overcorrect. So then I like dyed my hair black and I overcorrected and started just writing about everything and posting it on the internet. And the overcorrection kind of worked because I found my people. I found readers who, I don't know, they didn't feel like they had anybody either. So we just had each other. And yeah, so now, I mean, I set boundaries. I don't want to write anything that, you know, my kids are going to be ashamed of or would make them uncomfortable when they read when they get older. I don't write about my current relationship that I'm in because that ruined a relationship, kind of. I mean, there were other reasons that relationship failed, but one of the big main fights was you get really mad and then go write shit on the internet.
Yikes.
Yeah. So there's a couple of boundaries, but for most parts, I'll cover any topic.
So back to the book. Do you have a favorite essay in here or anyone in particular that speaks to you that is something you like best of all?
That's really hard.
Yeah. Because it kind of depends on where you are in life, right?
It does. Rereading it, re-listening to it, because I listen to the audiobook and she reads the audiobook herself.
Oh, I bet that's fun.
Yeah, re-listening to it for this interview. The last one and I think it's called like the appendix or whatever, and it's where her husband interviews her, and it's where she has the talk about where she talks about depression being the demon on her back. And of course she's written the questions, and I really wish that they would have had him record his part in the audiobook, but they didn't. But for me right now, I'm single, and I have been single for a little while. And one of the most touching things throughout that book, and now I'm reading, she just released a new book and I'm reading that one, is her relationship with her husband and how much he is aggravated by her, but loves her unconditionally. And that essay, this last reread really kind of struck a chord with me, because I was like, I find myself settling in relationships for people who maybe kind of understand me, but don't really. And I was just, listening to it and deciding that I just need to hold out for my Victor. Like I need to find that one person. I mean, like, look at a normal married couple that I know. The husband would have told them to take that chicken back, you know. I want a man who's not going to tell me to take the chicken back, you know? Like, I think that's perfect. Like, looking at, a man that's going to have to come into my chaos with my kids, and, contain the crazy. And maybe not fully understand it, but love it anyways. And I feel like I've just been settling for people who are like, I like her, and I guess, I deal with the crazy. But like now I'm old enough to be like, I'm going to hold out for that person that's like, I like her and her crazy, So
tell me what you're reading these days. What have you been into lately?
Well, I have two books that I'm kind of going back and forth. One of which is Jenny Lawson's new book, which is called Broken in the Best Possible Way.
Oh,
and
I love that.
Yeah, it's so far, it's so good. And then I am reading something for work, which now I've got to think about if I can talk about it. I think I can talk about it. I'm reading my co-host's memoir that she wrote about her marriage to a sex addict called Love Me More. And it's so good, and it's going to be out soon. But it's different because like I write like very like funny, I don't know, kind of sad, but mostly funny stuff about my life. And this is like I don't know, it's almost like Gone Girl. Like it's intriguing and it's thrilling. And I was like, I can't believe this happened to you type of stuff. And I don't write like that, but I definitely like admire people that can do that kind of stuff. So
tell my listeners about your podcast what's her name?
Carrie McAvoy. So she is the legitimacy to my crazy. So we have a podcast called Girl Get Your Shit Together. And she's a licensed psychologist. And I'm just a mess. So together, it's great.
Okay. You're a perfect match. She's your Victor, maybe.
Yeah. And so we talk a lot about mental health and relationships. We're both neurodivergent. Carrie is autistic, and then I am autistic and have ADHD and lots of other things, but we have a time limit. So we just kind of talk about, you know, what it's like to deal with mental health, bad days, good days, parenting. All of our children, between the two of us, we have 5 kids. They're all neurodivergent. So it's really interesting. But most of the time we talk about how we suck at dating or how dating sucks.
Ashely, I adore you. I think I'm so glad you're here. Will you share with my listeners where they can find all of your work online?
Yeah. So you can find, I have 2 books. Well, I have one coming out in August, and then I have a book out right now. Both of which are like kind of memoir style books. Girl Get Your Shit Together comes out in August. And then I have a book called This Is Me Letting You Go, which is all about essays about relationships and breakups. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. You can find me on TikTok, even though I feel way too old to be on TikTok. And then of course you can find our podcast, Girl Get Your Shit Together, anywhere you listen to podcasts.
That is great. I want to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll come back anytime you have a book you want to talk about, because it's a delight talking to you.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
And I got to glimpse Graham. Yay! I've only ever seen pictures of him.
I'm just glad he had all his clothes on.
Thanks for listening, bookworms. For more information on this episode and links to all the books we discussed, go to our website, bestbookeverpodcast.com. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at bestbookeverpodcast. I'm your host, Julie Strauss, and you can find me everywhere as Julie Wrote a Book. If you loved this episode as much as I loved making it, why not leave a review wherever you're listening? Each review helps new listeners find my work, and I'm so grateful for your help. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you at the library.